Hey guys, hope all is well. Welcome back towards the Rugby Recap, episode 33. You have myself, Rugby H, as well as the Q lads. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, mate. Six Nations season just around the corner. I see your background has changed. See that little Irish flag and the English up in the top corners. Both hoping to walk away with away victories this weekend. But the big game, of course, France Ireland. That could determine who wins the Six Nations.
Yeah, I mean it's a belter of match to start off the Six Nations because it essentially is kind of what decided the last one in round two, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, it's crazy because I kind of wish like this game because I mean nowadays obviously we know these kind of are the two giants I guess of the Six Nations in terms of how well just how well these teams are constructed at this point in time. But it would have been cool to see like I don't know if nicer. I mean, if it'd be at the end, I don't know, the Six Nations, like round 5 or 6, maybe. But I mean, we're definitely open for a kind of a big battle here in the opening rounds. So I think no one's going to turn down that, of course. But yeah, I mean, we'll start off obviously just talking about France Island straight away because this is the big game of you could arguably say the whole tournament, but definitely of round one for sure. And again, it's the only game so far that we've seen the lineups as well, guys. So just keep that in mind. But I mean, again, we can quickly just go over it now. I mean, I know for Ireland, they've selected the likes of Andrew Porter, Dan Sheehan. They've gone the likes of Tad Furlong, Joe McCarthy, Tag Byrne, Peter O'Mahony, who of course is the captain, Josh Van der Fleer, Caden Doris, Jimmy Gibson Park, Jack Crowley at number 10, James Lowe, Bundayaki, Robbie Henshaw at 12, at 13, I mean. Kelvin Nash at 14 and Hugh Keane at number 15. So a good kind of Irish side there. And then in terms of the French side, just quickly, they've got Cyril Bailly, they've got Peter Malaka, Uni Antonio. Wolf. I've never seen this guy before. Jeez, Gravel. I can't even do that one, guys. I'm sorry. Number 4. He's just it's a long ass name. But that's a new player for me. Paul Gravelers? I don't know. But yeah, Paul Williams at number 5. Francois Corus at number 6, Charles Orleans at number 7, Gregory Ultra at number 8. Of course, he was captain as for the French. Maxime Lucy at number 9. Matthew Jalabert, so he is fit enough for this game, so that's good because there was a bit of a doubt there from the beginning. Bofana number 11, Jonathan Dante number 12, Vic number 13, Demi Bono number 14, and Thomas Ramos number 15. Oh gosh, that was just going over all those names. But yeah, I mean, what do you think about both teams overall? Like, which one's looking stronger? Like, what's your thoughts on both teams?
Well, I think the reading of the lineups was absolutely flawless with zero errors whatsoever. Of course, the new name at number 4 for the French, a man who I'm sure once we hear the name a few times we will get used to it. I believe it is Gabrieles, something along those lines.
Yeah, I like that.
I'm not sure, to be honest. Yeah,
no, he sounds like the next world-class Hawk.
Could be. They've got plenty of other options. I like Cameron Walkie as a good option, or Tulfa Fanur, which actually looks like an easy name compared to his. But I think that both sides going with relatively strong starting sides, which was to be expected at the end of the day. This is pretty much the redemption game for both of these two sides, and it's the biggest game, like you said, of their Six Nations campaign. Whoever wins this puts themselves in the box seat, and of course a lot has to go right for them from this moment to be able to go on and win the Six Nations. There's no denying that. But at least you've beaten what a lot of people would consider your toughest challenge in round number 1. Peter O'Mahony playing at number 6, Van der Fleer, Doris. That is always somewhere that the Irish are able to step up. And then also across from them, you've got some very, very capable French backs, whether that's Mofana, Pinot, also Ramos at number 15, like you mentioned, Jalabert, going to be match fit and ready to rumble with Dante at 12 versus Bundayaki. That is the head-to-head that I'm looking forward to the most.
Yeah, I mean that center combination battle is gonna be that's gonna be nasty to watch. I mean Dante and Thaku, them two it's just I think it's a perfect balance in terms of a combination there, in my opinion. And to be fair, Bundayaki obviously was nominated obviously for World Player of the Year last year, so he'll be looking to kind of continue that form into 2024 in the Six Nations. But he's back obviously with Robbie Henshaw because again, a lot of the kind of Six Nations it was really with him and Ringrose. So it's interesting to see that Ringrose obviously isn't in this, because I think he's injured for the meantime, if I'm not mistaken. So it's an opportunity really for Henshaw to kind of like claim the spot maybe back for him. But I know for the Irish, I mean, there's a few new names in there that they've included. Probably the big one that's been mentioned a lot I've seen around social media is Joe McCarthy, just because he's coming in at the locking position, and they put James Ryan on the bench. So it's a very big call here to put James Ryan on the bench and start McCarthy here. But hey, Andy Farrell seems pretty confident in him in terms of, I guess, what he said in the press conferences. And yeah, he just seems like a player who, I haven't seen much of him, to be fair, guys. I mean, I know he's young, like he's like 22, 23, so he's a long way to go in his career. But I know obviously he was a part of the Rugby World Cup squad, got a few minutes in that. And, it's more of an experience to say that first one for him. But I mean, he looks like the next kind of Irish lock that come up in their ranks. And again, they have a ton of good locks. So it seems like he'll be in good company in that position. But yeah, I mean, what's your thoughts on, Jack Crowley? Because again, he's probably the big name and kind of the one that's been talked about the most, I'd say, in terms of the Irish lineup here and just the whole squad in general. Like, what's your thoughts on him?
Well, in some regards, both sides are without their star 10s because, of course, Ireland, no Johnny Sexton. For France, there's no Romain Ntamack, but we did see quite a bit of Jalabert throughout the Rugby World Cup and seemed to be a very good option. I think that the bigger talking point, of course, for the French is that number 9 jersey, but we will get to that very shortly. But Crowley, I feel like from what we've seen in terms of the URC, what he's been able to do throughout that competition, he's a class fly half. And it was always going to be, at one point or another, Sexton was going to hang up the boots. And everyone knew that it was coming, but it was like Alan Wynne-Jones. No one wanted to accept it. Everyone said, no, he's going to play till he's 50. He's got another couple seasons. And I think for Johnny Sexton, the thing that was more frustrating for quite a few Irish fans was the fact that he's playing some of his best rugby at the time that he's retired. Like, he's kind of gone out on a high, which, to his credit, not many players get to do. A lot of players will be near the end or get a big injury and then say, look, guys, I'm past it. But Johnny Sexton, his combination and his work throughout that Rugby World Cup was actually some of the best we have seen from that man throughout that Irish massive winning streak. So, Crowley, big shoes to fill, but I think that as a young player, all of the Six Nations competitions, when you get a chance, it's either make or break, and I hope that he does make it, because if he doesn't, then it's probably about 3 other guys that they have to go through to try and work out who that next 10 is.
Yeah, I mean that's where it becomes a bit difficult if this doesn't pay off in a way. I mean again, he has done pretty well, and just he's had experience, but again, this will be his first time, if I'm not mistaken, in the Six Nations starting. So it's a very big opportunity for him. But like you said, if you're going to be the predecessor towards Johnny Sexton, then you have a tough task in front of you. So it'll be very interesting to see how he kind of gets along. But again, I'm really the only other name I kind of want to mention on this side is really Calvin Nash, who's obviously coming in at that number 14 spot, another kind of debutant in this game. Again, I haven't watched him a lot, so I'm not too aware of how good he is in that way. I mean, have you seen much about him?
He's a good winger, and he can probably add, a new, I don't want to say a new style, but it adds something different for the Irish out on that wing. Of course, we have been seeing one side Mac Hansen, one side James Lowe, but now, of course, with the change in Nash, I feel like he's got a little bit more power than Hansen, and that could come in very handy when you're facing off with Mo Farner, because, of course, we know that man likes to run over the top of people in front of him, and perhaps the Irish kind of knew that a little bit, that there was the option, although I would have actually been backing Belbarry to be out on that wing if I was the French. So maybe not what they expected to see across them the Irish. But yeah, Calvin Nash, great winger. And I feel like he is once again like in his make or break tournament, because he's a bit more experienced than Jack Crowley, but he still wants to be able to prove himself. And in such a strong squad, it is always very tricky to get those minutes. Joe McCarthy, I feel the same way. I actually thought he did very well throughout the Rugby World Cup in the short amount of time that he was given. Actually looked quite impressive. So for him to be in the starting lineup here, I think is also a good thing. The Irish kind of mixing in the experience with a few of those young guys that they want to be the future, and That's something Ireland's done very well, is that academy of bringing up new players and slowly giving them opportunities, and it's going to be a good game.
Yeah, no, it's going to be an awesome game to watch. And I think just really just the last name I'm going to want to mention, but on the French side of things, and you mentioned him a bit, was Belberé just coming off the bench, because he's someone who, again, similar to you, I think would have expected actually to start this game. But I mean, it's kind of it's interesting, but also kind of tactical in a way. Obviously, Steve Mofana obviously been playing the number 11 spot, because they've noticed in the previous years where they've kind of been out-muscled in those kind of wing areas. So it makes sense that they're kind of going for bigger guys in those positions. So, yeah, it's going to be really fascinating to see how these two sides go. Again, I mean, Uni Antonio, of course, did get a kind of that yellow card in last year's Six Nations that kind of flipped the way for Ireland to kind of prevail in that game and kind of turn the table for them. So hopefully there isn't one kind of game-changing moment like that to kind of, because you want it to be pretty balanced throughout and see a lot of tries. And again, this game will be played in Marseille, as of course the Stade de France Stadium is being kind of I guess used for the meantime, kind of in preparation for the Olympics in the summer. So it's going to be fascinating to see how that game goes in Marseille, because again, when I was there, it's a very, it can get electric. So it's going to be a good game for sure. And yeah, just a great place to host that game. But yeah, just in terms of, I guess, your kind of one-to-watch player for this one, who's kind of keeping your eye out in this game?
Am I picking one from both sides or just one player, out of curiosity?
Let's go from one from both sides. I think that's fair. One from both sides.
So starting with the away side, the Irish. I mean, I mentioned about him in the previous podcast as well, but Bundy Aki at 12. I think that man is going to be able to bring so much to this Irish attack as well as their defence. Having Dante across from him, that is a pretty daunting task for any inside centre. And something that Dante does so well is get those turnovers in the breakdown. So I'm wondering whether or not we see Bundy Aki in terms of, like, he'll probably have a chat to that loose forward trio and say, boys, we can't let Dante in here because he does just get locked over the ball and then you can't move him. But if the ball gets shifted out to Bundy Aki, that is where the danger happens. That's where he's got James Lowe with him, Hugo Keenan join the line. I think that Bundy Aki is the key for the Irish in this match. And then for the French, you see what I did there?
I see what you did there. I just see it.
For the French, I am going to go, well, I could say Jonathan Dante, seeing as I've sucked him off for 2 minutes, but I would say instead that I am going to go with Damien Penaud. Out on that right wing, he knows how to score tries. He does it every year in the Six Nations. People think at some stage he's going to be out of form, but he just keeps going. So Damien Penaud, I'm going with as the French key.
Yeah, no, I like it. I mean, he's always been a fantastic player for the French, and he was top try scorer last season as well. So he'll be kind of looking to continue that going for this season in this competition. But yeah, for me, I mean, again, I think we've already mentioned his name, but I think Matthew Jalibert is probably the one player that I'm looking out for in this game for the French. I just think that battle in the 10s between Crowley and Jalibert is going to be really fascinating because, I mean, I've always considered Matthew Jalibert as a world-class 10. I mean, it's crazy how France actually have two world-class 10s in terms of Romain Ntamack and Jalibert. I mean, there's not a lot of teams that have that. I mean, you probably have the All Blacks, you have McKenzie and Bowden Barrett. Then you have Springboks. You have well, you could say I would say Manny Lebok is up now in the conversation as a world class 10. I'd put him in there with Andre Paul, of course, and who else is there? I mean, Owen Farrell is not in the scene now, so I can't say him. Is there an other nation I'm forgetting? No. Why am I thinking Australia? Argentina? No. No, I think that's it. I think that's really it. So there's not a lot of like nations that have two world-class 10s. So I think it's just, they're kind of lucky in that sense. So I just think he can take his opportunity and just kind of grasp it going into this game. But I guess in terms of the Irish, I mean, there's just so many players can go for here. I mean, every player is like awesome to watch. I mean, you're looking at Josh. I mean, I'm looking straight away at Josh Van der Vaart because he's just, he's always a very crucial player towards how the Irish play, and kind of he determines a lot in how they do within the breakdown. But to be fair, I'm actually going to say, just Joe McCarthy. I just think I kind of want to see how he gets along in this game and just kind of see if he's really, I just how well he does going against the likes of the French, because they're stacked at that position. So it's going to be very fascinating.
Just out of curiosity, who's he going head to head with?
He's number 4, so I believe he would go against. Would it be Williams? Because I'm not sure how it goes in the lineup.
It'd be up against the French number 4. What's his name?
Oh, okay. Gravel, it's like Gravelas or something like that. I still can't even pronounce it, guys. I'm gonna have to see the commentary and I'll get it straight away. But yeah, no, it'll be fascinating to see, because again, I've never seen. I don't even know what team this guy plays for. I mean, I should quickly just search this up just to see. Is he playing? I mean, if I had to take a guess, just off the back, I'm gonna say he plays for Toulouse, but I could be completely wrong with this. So let me just quickly check, guys.
I feel like he's got a. He kind of reminds me of a fella who I saw for, was it Bordeaux?
Well, no, he plays for Stade Française. But it'll be interesting to see how he gets along. Again, I mean, surprisingly, I didn't even mention this before, but I did originally say Paul Williams may have been injured or even a doubt for this game in terms of the Six Nations, but he's starting. So it's that came as a shock to me when I saw the kind of lineups announced. But again, they have Julian Machon off the bench as well. So it's interesting that they've kept Peter Mavaka as well, because he's had a very good 2023. So it'll be very fascinating to see kind of if he keeps that spot for the rest of the Six Nations, because I mean that's again another position where France are kind of fortunate to have kind of 2 world-class kind of hookers in that way. So yeah, we'll see what happens on that front. But I guess. Finishing this off now, in terms of your kind of prediction for the game, who do you think is going to win? Do you think maybe France takes it at home, or do you think Ireland can kind of grasp the opportunity away and take it from the French?
Well, it is, of course, the closest game on paper in terms of the betting odds. And there's a good reason for that, and that is because both of these sides are world class. That French backline, I feel like that is their dangerous factor, whereas this Irish team, you look through and you could almost say their fullback and that backline are both crucial. So, I mean, I said that Ireland would win the Six Nations. So, for me, they kind of have to win this game to get into that position. So, they bet the French last year, 32 points to 19. That was when it was an Irish home game. Now, this will be the first home crowd for France since the Rugby World Cup. And this will be the first game for Ireland and France since the Rugby World Cup, when they both lost their quarterfinals. So, redemption's on the cards. And I am going to say the Irish win this game 25 points to 22.
Ooh, okay.
I have no idea how they get to those points. I haven't done the maths. Ireland by 3. Three. I got to get the TH in there, but go on the Irish by 3. To be fair, Ireland do not pronounce 3 as 3, though, do they, Tim?
No. They pronounce it in all sorts of ways, to be fair. But no. I mean, this is a tough one. But to be fair, I mean, similar to you, I made my prediction video yesterday on my channel, and I actually did say the French would win the Six Nations overall. So it's, I mean, I got about the French really in this one. So I will say France will win, and I'll go with a scoreline. I think it'll be a tight one, actually. I don't think there'll be like as many. I'll be surprised if it goes into the 30s for this game. So I'm going to keep it kind of low scoring. So I'm going to say 20 points to 17. Or actually, no. Should I even do a bit less than that? I'd say 20 points to 16. Yeah. 20 points to 16 towards the French, I'll say, is my final prediction for the game. But, hey, it's going to be a game of margins, really. So we'll see what happens on that front. But yeah, no. Moving on then towards the next one, of course, out of the bunch, which is Italy versus England. And, again, this game obviously will be played in the Stade... what's it called? Stade Olimpico, which is where Roma play, I know for sure. But, I mean, it's going to be a good game. I mean, again, for this game and for the Wales Scotland game, obviously we don't know the lineups at the moment because they're going to be announced very shortly. But we do know, kind of the squad announcements, obviously. We can kind of, have a rough idea of who we can kind of predict kind of who will get chosen. And I think in this case, there's been a lot of doubts, you could say, from the England standpoint, just to go off the bat, because it doesn't seem like Marcus Smith is going to be available for this one. Alex Mitchell is kind of on a he is a doubt, but he could be available. It's like more of like a late fitness swing for him, so we'll see if he makes it or not. I'm trying to think who else there's. I mean, Ollie Lawrence, of course, is now injured. You have is there another player I'm forgetting that's massive for them? I think that's kind of it for the moment. I think that's kind of the three key ones. But I mean, besides that, I think England have a pretty strong team, and it's going to be. I mean, it's going to be fascinating to see who they go with, because at that 10 spot is the big argument, because you can either go with George Ford, who obviously is just, he's reliable and had a very impressive Rugby World Cup, or you give your debut towards Finn Smith, who's had a good season so far, I'd say. So it's one of those where you can really have your pick of a choosing really there. And I actually don't think you can go wrong with either one. So I mean, what's your take on the kind of the England kind of squad overall before we get into Italy?
Well, of course, a lot of changes compared to what we saw for last year's Six Nations. Injury concerns as well, like you said. I feel like the English, though, I've said this the whole way through, I feel like they're still that little bit of a dark horse in this competition, because first round they're up against the Italians. Second round, I believe they've got Wales. So they kind of actually build into the harder games as they make their way through the competition, and that could be hugely beneficial as long as they win the early games. If they lose them, then the momentum may be completely gone. For them in Italy, don't get me wrong, we can't underestimate the Italians, because they every once in a while pull off a miraculous performance. And do I think it's this week? I do not. I think that England should be strong enough to get the job done. It's just more of the question of how are the English going to approach this game, because I feel George Ford is the option at 10. But then it makes so much sense to give Finn Smith the chance now while you're up against the Italians.
Yeah.
But, it'll be a tricky one. See how we go.
It's one of those where I think with this side, I just think there's so many players that can be given kind of a debut for this game that it could also ruin the kind of the chemistry of the side as well. So they have to kind of be pretty careful now, I'd say, in terms of Borwick's decisions there. But like you said, overall, England definitely have kind of the advantage going into this game, as obviously, we all know they're the stronger side. But, the Italians, you can really never underestimate them, because even in that opening round, I believe, against the French, in last year's Six Nations, they were leading them like in the 70th minute at one point. So it's one of those where you can't really underestimate the French. The Italians, because they can challenge you if you allow them to. So, and again, you just don't want you kind of want to be you want to win the physical battle, I'd say, really, against the Italians. If you can do that, then you should be able to kind of easily kind of go past them and kind of open up spaces. But if you allow them to kind of compete with you in that battle, then it's going to get tricky, because that's where the Italians kind of sharpen up and obviously use their young back line to their advantage. So it's going to be very fascinating to see how this kind of game goes. But I know from the Italian standpoint, just going on towards the Italians, that back line I was mentioning, it is a ton of potential, I think, in that back line. And again, we've seen this across, for the last 2 years now. It's kind of shaping up now. But kind of what's your thoughts on that back line that the Italians have?
Well, I hope they get it right, because I think the Rugby World Cup was the perfect example of, if they want to make 15 changes to the players, that goes very wrong. Their defence went out the window. We've got to remember, they were very close in their game up against, I believe it was the French. They were holding them pretty well. And then something happened. They decided, we'll move a player from 15 to 10, a player from the centres to the wing, a winger to fullback, and they conceded about, 90 points? Something like that. So it's pretty hard to know. Well, they should know. Don't do that again. Keep your back line roughly what it was. But, if they get it right, I think you summed it up pretty well in terms of the fact that the Italians, they're a very passionate side. And if you allow their passion to flow and you allow them to think that they've got a chance of winning a contest, they will believe you and they will keep on going and going. If you can shut down that belief, take them into deep water early, that is when it gets messy for this Italian side, mainly because, like you said, they're a little bit younger, a little bit less experienced, and let's be honest, there's not many young players around the world who like losing. So, you got to take it to them early.
Yeah, that's with every sport generally, but it's one of those where I just think it's Yeah, the Italians, they just have some. I think they really do have something up their sleeves this time. I think they can actually challenge England in this game. I mean, maybe I'm wrong in this case, but I just think England don't have their best team, I think, going into this one because there's doubts under their 9 and 10. If they don't have those two, then it's going to be fascinating to see how kind of England can manage things on that front. But yeah, I mean, yeah, the Italians just they have a great side. I mean, Ange Capuzzo, they got Garbisi, who is a doubt. I know for this game now, that's probably the one thing that could hurt them, I'd say, on that front, because he's also one similar towards, well, it's not as bad as what I've heard to Marcus Smith, but he's similar towards like Alex Mitchell in a way, like where it's just one of those where we'll be determined if he can play or not. But yeah, I mean, look, the Italians, they can do it. I honestly think they can make the game close. I'm not saying they could win it. I'm just saying they can make this game closer than what most people think. But yeah, I guess just going on towards your kind of ones to watch player in terms of kind of players you expect to kind of go in, kind of giving you a rough guess, which player do you think could stand out in this game?
I think that it will be George Ford if they select him at 10. Yeah. Mainly because, to be honest, I felt like he didn't deserve to be dropped from the English starting lineup in the Rugby World Cup. I thought he single-handedly put together a monumental performance. I believe he scored every single point in one of those contests, including a few drop kicks as well up against the Argentinians. Yeah. And England pretty much just shut down the Pumas' momentum. And other than that, like, it just seemed like a shame when Farrell came back, only because we didn't get to see George Ford, who had helped them get to that point of the competition. He was kind of put to the side and they said, no, we'll go with the guy who should be better, but wasn't off form. So I hope George Ford does well here. Of course, he's still got the contention of if Owen Farrell does return into the side, they'll probably just chuck him to the sideline again. But I think if he has a really big Six Nations here, he's got a good argument for starting 10 for quite some time.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
Even though he's getting up there in age, but a couple years, I would say.
Yeah, I honestly even like if I just do a quick search now, like how old? I think George Ford is like what, 30? Am I wrong in saying that?
Like I don't know why, but I feel like he's like 35.
No, he's 30.
I'm thinking of Ben Youngs. Ben
30.
Youngs is like 57. So.
Oh, Ben Youngs is old. Yeah, he's old. Yeah. No, I get that. But no, George Ford is only 30. Like
she'll be right then.
He'll turn 31 by the end of the Six Nations. So yeah, no, it's one of those where he still has. He can definitely play another World Cup. That's for sure. But
he's been around for so long as well, hasn't he? But it's always been up there in terms of selection. It's just normally he's the backup rather than being the star.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Yeah. But I mean, in terms of your, I guess, one to watch player for the Italians, who do you then choose in that case?
Well, of course, we do not know the selections, but I would assume that Michel Lamaro would be somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Did I say low or row? Lamaro, of course, with the R rather than the L. Yeah. I might have said an L. But of course, the Italians don't want to take the L in this weekend, but they may have to because England's probably doing pretty well.
They have to.
But I think he'll be important. The loose forward trio, I think, is somewhere that the Italians, definitely if England do make a couple changes, like they're going to be up against Ben Earl, who of course will cheer his head off even if like a line-out's not straight. So he's going to bring the excitement to that English forward back and try and get them fired up and screaming at the top of their lungs. But yeah, I think Lamaro, he's going to be very important. Same with a couple of those other guys in that loose forward trio, whether that's going to be Sebastian Negri with a Canoni off the back. I thought that he actually had a pretty good World Cup overall in terms of the running meters and the physicality. So yeah, I'll probably go with that loose forward trio, more specifically though with Lamaro.
Yeah, I mean, just starting off the Italians. I mean, I would actually. I'm also looking at that kind of loose forward trio because I mean we haven't actually mentioned it, but of course the Italians obviously now have a new head coach instead of Kieran Crowley, who of course has now left the Italians, and it's now Gonzalo Guazzella. So again, he's someone who he was previously coaching at Stade France, if I'm not mistaken, and again he's had stints in the past. I think he was also part of that Jaguares kind of coaching team. I could be wrong on that, but I think maybe he may have been an assistant coach maybe for that. But I know that, he's kind of implemented, I know just watching a few kind of what Stade France have done, he kind of implements more of a kind of a French / English, I'd say, hybrid in a way in terms of how they kind of go, how it's more defensive minded, I'd say, rather than attacking minded, which is it's kind of what the Italians need at the end of the day. And kind of going off that World Cup, they definitely need more of a defensive minded coach rather than attacking, even though they have obviously the players that do that. Yeah, that's kind of why I'm looking at more at Sebastian Negri, I'd say, for this one, just because we've seen recently kind of from the dock, from the Six Nations full contact, he's kind of been a very important player for them. Obviously a big kind of leader, I'd say, in that group, and someone who can really just kind of challenge, I'd say, that kind of English loose forward pack. So he's kind of one I can see is kind of disrupting kind of the momentum of the English when they have the ball, kind of winning those turnovers when needed. So I think he's kind of the guy I'm looking out for in terms of that Italian team. But I guess for the English, I mean, Ben Earl's probably the easy answer, just because he had a great Rugby World Cup, and he's someone that I've mentioned a lot recently, just about how he can just hopefully kind of transform that form once again and just become more consistent, I'd say, because he was brilliant for the Rugby World Cup, but previously he hasn't been able to get as many minutes as he wanted. So it's one of those now where if he can get his minutes up, then England have a player on their hands there. But I don't know. I mean, I kind of want to change it up a bit. You know what, actually, I think for England, I'm going to say Tommy Freeman actually is a player I'm looking out for. I think he's someone who actually could get a star in this one. Again, he's been a lot, I'd say, on the right wing most of the time for Northampton, and they've had a great season so far. And I think he's scored at least I could be wrong, but I think he scored at least 7 tries, I think, so far in this comp. So he's done in every comp, I think. Yeah, he's someone who's really impressed me, and I think I honestly think him and. For the future, obviously this is thinking way down the line, but I would honestly go with Henry Arundel and Tommy Freeman as kind of the starting wingers for the future. But of course, Arundel obviously isn't up for selection now. But I think it's probably going to be Freeman and I'm trying to think, who they go with as the other winger? Maybe who do you think? Who do you think could be the other winger for the English?
It's a bit tricky, isn't it? Because they've got the likes of an Elliot Daly, who they may look at as an option just because of that experience.
That's probably it. That's actually it. I think that's probably what.
I feel like that's probably actually the best choice.
Yeah, because they do have what's his name? I'm gonna probably pronounce it wrong. It's like Cabosso, or they have that new kid. I haven't seen much of him actually, but I know he, from what I've read, that he chose England obviously over Wales in terms of national selection, and England have selected him for this one, and so I'll have to see a bit more about how he plays. But I think you're right on the nail there. It's probably gonna be Elliot Daly as the other one. But yeah, no, Tommy Freeman's my pick in terms of the English. But yeah, no, just in terms of the kind of score prediction, I'll kind of start off with this one, just quick and easy. I think the English will win this, but I actually do think it'll be much closer than what most people think. So I actually think it'll be, I'll say 36 points to 20. 36 points to 25. I'll say something around there. It's going to be a high scoring game, I think, because I think the Italians just, if they can get going, then kind of, but also it comes down towards Carpizzi being kind of available because they need a good kicker. I mean, again, they have Tommaso Allen, so it's not much to worry when you have him on your side, but you know what? I have to maybe just to be a bit safe, I'll put the score down a bit just because I'm a bit unsure about Carpizzi if he's going to start or not. So I'll say 36 to England, and I'll say 20. I'll say 23. I'll say 23. Yeah, 36 to 23 to England. I'll say is my scoreline for the game. But how about yourself then? What do you think could be the Italy-England score then?
Well, I'm thinking a little bit similar to yourself in terms of England score. I was thinking 39 for England.
Okay.
And I was thinking, see, that's the thing. I want to say 13 for the Italians.
Ooh, whoa! You don't think that'll be a good game?
I think they're going to struggle. That's the problem, though. I feel like they might sneak a couple tries. Yeah. So then I should probably go about 18. So maybe 39-18, somewhere around there. But
that's respectable.
I do believe that this is one of those games we can either see Italy score quite a few points or very, very little. And I'm talking maybe as little as they score throughout the whole Six Nations. Similar to what we saw for England last year. I can't quite remember who it was up against. It wasn't Argentina, but someone else they just shut out of the game completely. And I'm
I
trying
think
to
it was,
remember.
it was England versus Argentina. Like
They did do very well in that. It was actually Chile. Unfortunately, was the result I was thinking of. And in fact,
that one.
Japan as
Yeah,
well
yeah,
in their game of the Rugby World Cup, 34 points to 12. I see, which I think was a bit of an anticlimactic one for the Japanese. So they've shown in the past that up against good sides, they can stop them from scoring. But of course, different English squad, a lot of changes. So yeah, I'll go with 39-18.
yeah. No, I like that. I like that. But yeah, kind of finishing off with the last one then, Wales against Scotland. I mean, this is a big game, I'd say, to kind of determine how these two sides will go, because I think generally when you look at both these sides, I think most people don't have them winning the Six Nations, but they're kind of either placed, they're kind of more like, I'd say like fourth or fifth, I'd say in most people's estimations in terms of kind of where they're going to finish. So this game can kind of determine kind of who finishes where, but also you have to kind of look back at the record. Just going off the back here, I mean, I'm not trying to give the score prediction straight off the bat, but just to kind of keep something in mind before you make it, where Scotland haven't won at the Millennium since 2002. So it's been a very long time since Scotland have kind of edged them in Wales. So it's going to be very fascinating to see if they can do something on that front. And I honestly think Scotland is in a better position than Wales to do it. So I think I saw something where they are the favorite to win the game by bits. So it's, I mean, I would say the Scottish, but again, I mean, when you look at their players, again, the side hasn't been announced, obviously, for both sides, but I mean, you obviously will expect Finn Russell to be playing number 10. And you've got players like Tupeloto in there. You've got Duhan van der Merwe. You're not going to have Darcy Graham, unfortunately, because he's out for the Six Nations, which is a big loss for them. But you're going to have Kyle Stain, who, to be fair, actually has always done pretty. He's like one of those players. There's always players like Kyle Stain, like where it's like he's just a very consistent player. Like he's kind of like what George Bridge was for the Crusaders in a way, like where he just every single time he's not like a fancy player in terms of everything he does, but he just gets the job done. He's very consistent, very clinical in his try scoring, so definitely someone reliable to have. I mean, they're gonna have Blair Kinghorn as well, number 15 probably now, in replace of Stuart Hogg, who's no longer there, so he'll get more minutes under his belt. I mean, yeah. What do you think of Scotland? Because they have a really good chance, I think, throughout the Six Nations, and definitely room to grow. So, kind of, what's your kind of perspective on them?
Well, I think, like you said, the fact that they're coming in as favourites to this game says a lot about this Welsh team. Just looking through their backline, I'm going to list you a few players who aren't in there. Dan Biggar, who was one of the main factors for them winning a few of their games in the Rugby World Cup. They don't have Liam Williams. No. They don't have Lewis Rees-Zammit as another player who's going to be missing in the four-pack. Of course, they haven't got Alan Wynne-Jones. They haven't got Jack Morgan. They have got a few new names, but you know, at least with Scotland, they've got some consistency in the players that they're able to select. So I can understand why they come in as favourites. And to be honest, the Scottish squad, you know, they win this game. Who knows what's just around the corner? That's the beauty of the Six Nations. It seems like it's straightforward till it's not. And if Scotland win their first couple games, all of a sudden the competition isn't so black and white. There's a little bit of, I guess, indecision and kind of unpredictability to it.
Yeah, like I mean, not to like get off ahead, because we're also going to do a big thing after we kind of go over these teams and kind of say our final prediction on here, because we may change it or not, but I honestly think if Scotland beat Wales away, their next game against France could literally determine the whole Six Nations. I think that's the pivotal game throughout the Six Nations, in my opinion, not France versus Ireland. But that obviously depends on them beating Wales. Because again, like I said, the history kind of is against them. So it's going to be fascinating to see what they can do on that front. But yeah, like you said with Wales, I mean, they're really more in a kind of a reset position at the moment in terms of like they're kind of looking towards the next cycle. They're like, how do I say this? Like with Scotland, they have a ready-made team for now, so they can compete for the Six Nations. In honesty, like they have the players that do it. Whereas for Wales, they're really more kind of resetting the whole cycle and hope they're kind of developing players to go on towards like the next World Cup, and they'll be kind of in their kind of mid years in terms of 27, 26, 28, and kind of be in their prime to kind of go into that World Cup. So that's kind of like what Wales' position is at the moment. So for them, they're really more kind of developing players, I'd say, at this stage. So we're going to see a lot of talent emerge, I say, from the Welsh standpoint, because there's a lot of players I'm looking out there. I mean, not to jump the gun here, but if I have to say mine kind of once-watch player for the Welsh, I'm looking at Mason Grady. I think for them, just he's a talent. I think that that not a lot of people have seen play, but he's someone I've seen a lot of highlights, and I've seen a lot of just a few games, not a lot, but just a few games, and he just already. I mean, I can just tell he's going to be a good player for them. So he's someone I'm hoping gets a few minutes for the Welsh. Well, I mean, just a lot of minutes, I'd say, for the Welsh throughout this Six Nations, but. I know, I mean, going for the Scottish, I mean, they have a ton of players, but I'm going to actually say Blair Kinghorn. I just think he's the player I think I'm going to look out as a one to watch because, he has the opportunity now. There's no longer Stuart Hogg in his way to kind of, I guess, restrict his minutes. And he's been playing very well in France so far in the top 14 for Toulouse. So, he now has an opportunity to kind of just showcase kind of what he's learned so far and kind of just bring Scotland to the next level. So it'll be interesting to see how he kind of gets along. But I mean, what about you? Who do you think is kind of the one-to-watch players for this game?
I think for the Welsh, I'm looking at Will Rowlands, mainly because
Good shout.
There's a big gap to fill after Alan Wynne-Jones, but I think he's actually doing a pretty good job of being able to fill it because he is a different style of player to Alan Wynne-Jones, and I don't think it's a bad thing for the Welsh. So, his work rate is impressive, makes a lot of tackles, and also has a few runs along the way. So, definitely watching out for him for the Welsh. For the Scottish, I think that backline, someone who I thought wasn't as influential as they should have been in that Rugby World Cup was Duan van der Merwe.
Yeah.
I feel like we saw him maybe about a tenth as much as people wanted to see him. Definitely for those who were going for Scotland. But I think that this Six Nations has to be the one that he steps back up and says, I'm still here. Because if he doesn't, like you said, you might go with the consistency of someone like a Kyle Steyn and say, well, at least we know he's going to give us a 7 or 8 out of 10 performance rather than Duan, who's either going to be a 10 out of 10 or a 2 out of 10, and he might touch the ball once. So for Scotland...
You're taking him out? Like, are you saying you don't want him in the side?
I'm saying if he doesn't have a Six Nations where we see him touch the ball more than once a game, you might as well have anyone else out on that wing. Because if he's not going to touch the ball, that's literally what he's good at. He's good at running the ball. We've seen that highlight of a try that he got a couple years ago in the Six Nations, how he just carved through everyone, about 6 different players last year. And guess what? If he doesn't do it again, I would probably take him out of the team. Just because you need to see him. There's no point being that big if you're going to sit there and people go, wait, was he playing that game?
Yeah, I can get what you're saying because, from a personal standpoint, we have kind of a similar player with the Blues with Caleb Clark, and sometimes he doesn't get a lot of touches on the ball, but what he does, he's kind of similar towards Duhan van der Merwe, where he's kind of electrifying him, kind of a big, he's built essentially, so he can kind of run over guys and just kind of get past players. So, but of course, he needs the ball with him, and he's not able to. He's not as influential as you can be if you have a player like him. Well, no, another player could be more influential. That's kind of what I'm trying to say in his position. But it's fascinating. I mean, I still think Duhan van der Merwe is I honestly think he's a world class runner. So I wouldn't take him out any day of the week. But I do get your argument where he needs the ball to become that world class runner. Like he's not giving you, I guess, that extra product where I'm trying to fit like. Maybe I'm wrong in saying this, guys. Like maybe I haven't been watching him as much. I mean, that's just my fault. But I know, like when I look back at what's a player I can just name off the back? Sever Reece, for example. Like Sever Reece, I know, yes, he's electrifying with his pace, but I know he's also a good tackler, and he also is pretty good actually within the breakdown at points. So he gives you that extra edge. So it's one of those like where with Duhan van der Merwe, I can't say that right off the back. So yeah, you can obviously just. If he can step up, then hey, Scotland can, they're going to do well at the end of the day. That's just what Duhan van der Merwe does. He's just a unit, he's a tank, and he's a battering ram. So give him the ball, he's going to score you a ton of tries. So yeah, I just hope he does well. But
he does actually go through patches where he looks for work, if that makes sense. Like someone who does that quite a bit in terms of, I know you mentioned Sever Reece, but another Crusader or ex-Crusader, Stefan Arnuku, when he's not getting the ball out on the wing, he becomes the first receiver as a forward and says, well, I want this ball. Yeah. I still want to be involved in the action. And Duan van der Merwe, he does that in certain games. He'll kind of go a long way off his wing. He actually finds himself out on the other wing. He's kind of gone, that one's not working. That one's closed for the day, so I'll come out to yours. But he does get that ball every once in a while, needs to the breakdown, and he can make the meters, just like a big forward. But, you know, if he's out there on the wing, they don't really try cross kicks to him. I don't think I've ever seen too many times that Finn Russell has gone to his wing rather than Darcy Graham with that cross kick.
Yeah, I agree.
But, you know, he's got potential. You know, the world-class player that he is, he's got potential if he touches the ball.
Yeah, like he can do. Yeah. No, I understand what you mean. I understand, but yeah, no, really, just now with the scoreline, kind of what's your kind of prediction for this game between Wales and Scotland?
Well, I feel like this will be one of the closer games of the weekend. But then saying that, I already had only a 3-point difference between France and Ireland, so I'm going to say 25 points to 23 in favour of Scotland.
25 points. Oof, okay, so you're going for Scotland. Oh, that's a big call.
They sneak it. That's what I'm going for.
I like it. I mean, to be fair, I mean, I'm edging my bet towards the Scottish as well. So I think the Scottish will beat the Wales at the Millennium, but I will say, for some reason, I think it'll be a low-scoring game. I just don't think it's going to be really tense, I think. So I'm going to say like 18 points to 18 points to 15. I'll say 18 points to 15 in favor of the Scottish. I just think it's going to be one of those where it's just be very cagey. And again, it's the first Six Nations game, so it's always one of those where I'm trying to think: has there ever been last year's? I mean, to be fair, Scotland England was a very high scoring game in that one when they played last year. Was Wales Ireland? No, that wasn't high scoring at all. Then you have. What was the other one? Italy, France. That was high scoring. That was a bit of a high scoring one. Yeah. Oh, now that I think about it, I kind of want to change my mind here. I actually may say, I'm actually going to say 12 points to Wales and 12 points to 20. That's what my final prediction is. 20 to 12 in favor of the Scots. I just think that it's going to be a gap there, but I think the Scottish can get it done. But yeah, no, besides that, I think that's kind of it really with the Six Nations. And again, we've kind of already kind of mentioned who we believe will be kind of the winners, but just you can also just mention one more time for the pod. Who do you think will be your Six Nations winner?
I am going with the men in green.
The men in green.
The Irish.
The Irish, the mighty Irish. But and in my case, of course, I will be going for France. It's one of those where, again, I was originally thinking England, but I think that last game is kind of, in my opinion, could determine the Six Nations, France, England. But again, if Scottish do well against Wales and then they beat France, then that just opens the whole Six Nations, I think, on a whole. And then you have like England versus Ireland at home. That could just determine the Six Nations again. So there's a lot of games that can really just wipe the slate clean for a lot of teams. But it's going to be a very open competition, I think, guys. Very open. But anyway, guys, we're going to leave it there. Make sure to obviously like the video, guys. Subscribe to our channel. Make sure to obviously leave a comment below. Let us know your thoughts just in terms of who you think will win the Six Nations. And just let us know in the comments just which player you think is going to stand out. Maybe a player who hasn't really been given enough minutes, or a player just who's a world-class player that you just think he's going to kind of do well throughout this tournament. Let us know in the comments below. But obviously check out the Kiwi lads. He'll be doing a lot of live streams, I suspect, throughout the Six Nations. I'll be trying to do at least one game for each round throughout the Six Nations. So again, I'll be kind of picking and choosing which game is the big one to do. But besides that, just hope everyone has a good day, and see you guys next time.